marketers. I'm Adam Dilbeck. This is our chief conspiracy theorist, Nicole Gunn.
How you doing, guys? And more importantly, this is our chief conspirator over here, Mr. Kelly Held.
Hi, everyone.
He's technically our CIO.
And she's technically our CMO, but...
what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, so today we are here. What are we here to talk about today, Kelly? What are you
we're here to talk about a really exciting subject, SOC-2. Actually, it can be exciting. It can be very boring. It's complicated, and I'm going to do my best to boil it down to something that people understand. It's okay. You're not going to get excited about it like I do, but I just want people to understand it and why it's important.
Well, it's interesting. I would agree with you, right? Most of us are not going to get excited about it. In fact, when we have to go through the process every year and Kelly sends me my list of stuff, my initial reaction is always, oh. But there are a lot of good reasons for it, and I know this, and it's hard, but the important thing sharing with you marketers out there today is understanding the importance. So when you're making buying decisions, how you keep different safety measures for your organization, for the people that work with you guys, how you keep everything safe, how you create trails or audit trails. So with that, Kelly, what actually is SOC compliance?
So SOC stands for Systems and Organizational Controls 2. It is an audited standard. So this is, there's a third party looking at it. It's not like a self-certification where you go fill out a form and say you're certified. So this is, there are things like that. And so this is a, third party, and actually CPAs.
Accountants are in charge of auditing for SOC-2?
They are. Because, exactly. So, it's a standard. It sounds a little weird, but you want someone with attention to detail and honesty and all those things, right? And so that's
it's a little mark
CPAs are.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, I figured if
you guys will never stretch the truth or anything, right?
No, absolutely not.
We just got caught out, you guys.
So
we did. No, I'm just surprised. I didn't think, like accountants would be the one auditing data security. That's cool to know.
From the security perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we're
who better to Kelly's point.
So the CPAs are auditing, and so the way that SOC works is it's a there are different trust principles. So there are 5 different trust principles. We focus on 3. So security, availability, and confidentiality. And within those trust principles, there's different standards. There's a minimum standard that you have to meet, but you kind of decide and scope out with the auditor what is it that we're trying to cover. One of the reasons SOC is popular is because each business is a little different. So each business is going to have their auditing requirements are going to be a little different, but it's really around the trust principles, and you have to, there's minimums. So it's not like, you can be out of compliance. You're going to have to be in compliance, but, there's a scoping exercise that takes a long time. What is it that we're trying to guard against? It's really about your information security practices. And the foundation of information security practices is risk. And so, we have to look at what are our risks. And as we look at, the risk, for each business might be different, but it's still kind of all falls into a standard that then gets audited against. And, to make it more complicated, there are actually 2 different types of SOC-2. So there's SOC-2 Type 1, and a SOC-2 Type 1 really says that you met the standards as of this point in time, but it doesn't say anything about whether or not you're practicing those standards all the time. So the better and more rigorous SOC-2 report is SOC-2 Type 2, and that's basically auditing that you've done what you say you're going to do and meeting the minimum standards within those over the whole year. Usually it's a year. It can be as little as 3 months. Our first one was 3 months, actually, just to kind of get started. And then, so we've been doing this, I think this is my 4th year. And so the first one was 3 months, and then the ones after that will be 12 to 13 months. So,
it's interesting, you guys. So yes, I'm the CMO, but I also oversee sales. And this is a common question we do get asked, right? And it's interesting because a couple years ago, Kelly, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember you specifically saying, like, this is one of those moments when I was probably, if I'm being honest, arguing because I didn't want to have to do all the questions that Kelly sent me again. But the truth is, he was like, it may not be required for us, Nicole, but it's required for the businesses and the prospects that you're trying to sell to do business with us, right? And you hit the nail on the head because since he said that to me, what I will say is over the years, I continuously hear about this, right? So marketers out there, a SOC compliance is super important, but and you're talking about kind of, some of the why, but if you were going to break that down into layman's terms, right? We said security, availability, and confidentiality. What about those three things for buyers is important that us marketers need to understand? Security around what? What is it that needs to be secured that we should be practicing every single day around availability and around confidentiality?
It's really all about customer data. So, who you should get a SOC to is really, if you handle people's data and you want them to trust that you're going to handle that data well and that data is going to be secure, dealt with confidentially and available when you need it, right? Then that's, that, but it's all really about data. It all comes back to data.
Well, so that makes sense, right?
Makes sense to me, and I'm simple.
He's a kind of man.
And SOC 2 isn't like a legal requirement. It's not like HIPAA. A doctor has to have, follow HIPAA. So you don't have to, if you start a business, have a SOC, be SOC 2 compliant. But, you want your partners that are handling your data to be SOC 2 compliant because, that gives you some assurance. There's no guarantees, of course. People with SOC 2 certifications have had data breaches, that type of thing, but it's less likely, and it's more likely to be contained, those types of things. So, the reason you want it is to protect your data and to protect, your brand, because a lot of people who have had a data breach actually have had a data breach 1 or 2 levels down. So, we all deal with multiple vendors, and part of SOC 2 auditing is auditing, I have to audit all of our vendors, all of our critical vendors, that they have a SOC 2 or that they, answer the questionnaires, and we feel like they're fulfilling, their security requirements, information security requirements up to the level that we feel comfortable doing business with them.
I want to touch on that first. Well, actually, I'm going to go back to that. I want to touch on something you said a second ago, because what we're really talking about is PI data, right? And as marketers, we collect a lot of data, everything from first name, last name, sometimes mailing addresses, and really not even just marketers. Let's be real. If you're an auto, or I'm sorry, like like if you're Toyota, a car manufacturer, dealer rather, you're collecting buyer information. So, but from marketers, we're also collecting demographic information. How important is that? When you're looking at PI in its totality, what information needs to be protected by SOC? And at what point do you guys go, okay, don't worry about that. If you're just collecting something like hair color, is that truly important?
Well, there is a privacy trust principle that talks, about PII specifically, but I think, in general, and it's more important for some companies than others. For the most part, we are processing other people's data, so we're a data processor, not necessarily a data controller, and that's a whole nother topic to get into, with GDPR, those types of things. So there's a lot around privacy that's even outside of the scope of SOC 2, but when we're talking about SOC 2, it's talking about all data. So we consider all data, then, customer data, to be sensitive and needs to be protected. Some data, of course, needs to be protected at different levels, and we have different information security classifications for our data. But from a customer data standpoint, you want to protect it all.
Be skewed,
So that gets
overprotective,
right?
More than often.
Well, it's an interesting, kind of a fine line, right? Because, and I'll use like a CRM, right? We collect a lot of data in our CRMs, but at what point is that if you're a marketer, at what point is that something you have to worry about versus like Salesforce worries about it? Or is it kind of a combination, it's partnering together in this?
So it's a combination of both. And, when you talk about Salesforce, we actually look at Salesforce SOC 2, and we go through and we say, when was their SOC 2 done? Are they keeping it up to date? Because you want it to be no more than a year old. And, what were their exceptions, and then what are our requirements. One of the things in the SOC 2, it says everything that we do, here's what we do to protect your data. But part of the SOC 2 requirements is, what do we expect you to do? What's the minimum that you need to do? Because this is a partnership, right? When we're working with Salesforce or we're working with our clients, it's always a partnership. So what is the minimum that you need to do to help us protect your data? And so, when we're looking through that, we have a matrix that says, what are the things that they expect us to do? Are we doing those? What are the things that were exceptions maybe in the report? Because, when you get a SOC 2 report, you either there's an opinion as to whether or not it's that you're compliant. And so it's not like a test.
There's no certificate at the end or anything like that.
No,
Yeah.
Well, you get an audit opinion.
Yeah.
And the audit opinion is kind of, there is a certificate we actually put on the
I
side.
was going to say I put it on the website.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
So, but again, it's based on the opinion, and the opinion again is based on, you know, them doing the audit, collecting everything. There's interviews. There's, there's 265 pieces of evidence. I think, and we have 2 different products, and so they're reviewing a lot, and that's why, going back to when you said before, a CPA. Well, one of the things about CPAs, is that they're trusted, and so the opinion that's being given isn't being given by just anyone; it's being given by a CPA, and they also have ethical standards, and so they're giving you an opinion, and they're kind of staking their professional reputation and their certification on it. So it means something. And so the best opinion that you can get is unqualified, which sounds a little weird, right? Qualified sounds like you didn't do well. But yeah, it's basically it's the best you can get is unqualified. Then the next one down would be a qualified, which means you passed. You were compliant to the standard, except in these areas, and they're just kind of calling those out. And then there's, you didn't make it, or we didn't give an opinion. So those are the types of opinions that you can get out of that. But, we're always shooting for unqualified. Doesn't mean that, again, you've checked every box, or, there's actually in a SOC report at the bottom, there's a list of exceptions, and those exceptions can be severe, in which case, you go from from unqualified to qualified, or it could be that they're exceptions and they're minor, but they call them out. And so if you read down to the bottom of a SOC 2 Type 2 report, you'll get a list of exceptions where, the finding, yeah, exactly. The findings that they looked at weren't exactly perfect. And then the management gets the opportunity to respond to those. The auditor goes, here's what we found, and the management goes, and here's why it happened, and here's what we plan to do so it never happens again.
It's interesting. One of the things I wanted to ask you is really around what types of businesses should have it. But as I listen, I think a more interesting question is what types of businesses shouldn't have it. And the reason I ask is even the car wash collects some sort of PI now for credit card, right? You can
Especially when you're signing up for the subscription.
exactly,
Credit card.
which we all do, right? Because it's just so easy. So who
Yeah.
doesn't do that now?
Well, so PCI kind of covers some of that, and PCI is a different type of standard, and so we do PCI too, but don't want to get too far away from SOC 2, but it is complicated. It is, I don't want to. It's somewhat expensive, and so it's expensive in terms of time that's invested, and it's and you also have to, pay the auditor no matter what their and by the way, there's not a different rate that you can pay to make sure you get unqualified. Again, that's the advantage of being a CPA.
Yeah.
Getting CPAs to do this. So I would say, small businesses I wouldn't expect them to have it. Maybe starting out, you want to not focus on it, but any really mature business should have one.
So with that said, there are a lot of advantages that come along with it. So let's move those small businesses out. If we were to, look at the advantages of getting that SOC 2 compliance. Let's not leave them out. Just in general, what are if you were going to list a top 3 advantages, what do you think that those would be?
I would say they're around brand trust, right? So it really helps your brand trust. It really um, helps you sell to more people because there may be people that require you to have a SOC 2, and especially if we think about government contracts or something along those lines. Uh, and so I would say those are the two big ones. It's like, can I sell to more people? And then what's my brand trust? So
I think a lot more people are concerned with that nowadays. It's not just like CIOs and people in tech who are like, oh my God, you have to worry about hackers. Like, I get notifications every day that my password's been hacked on this website or it's been used or something like that. So, like,
and I'm really passionate about data security, and we could have a different podcast on that. So
I'll write that down.
and but yes, I think that the interesting thing about SOC 2, though, if you go back to what Nicole was saying earlier about the questions that I ask her, when we talk about data security practices, it's not just about IT.
no.
IT handles a lot of it, but they look at the auditors are looking at what are your HR practices, because there are people in the loop, right? Are we doing background checks? Are we training people correctly? Are they getting the resources they need? They look at budgets. They look at all kinds of things that aren't necessarily just IT related. So it's a whole company. It's really
Why
it's a good check.
What
Are
budgets?
do you have budgets, for example, for training? Do you have
Yeah.
budgets for the proper IT? Or is it 1%? Is it whatever percent? And so different auditors look for different things, but that was a little pushback initially when we were looking at that. But going back to what you said earlier about why we didn't always have it, and when you didn't have it, and I know some CIOs or CTOs out there will understand this. You have to fill out, and I still have to fill them out, but they're easier to fill out. All the long security questionnaires, right? And so each company is going to do its due diligence. You should be doing your due diligence when you're bringing on a new vendor. So we're always filling these out, and they're easier to fill out when you have the SOC 2. Kind of a lot of them will shortcut some of the questions that you have to fill out. So that's another advantage. But also, I would say that it kind of it makes you up your security game. I always felt that we had good practices in place, and it wasn't so I felt like when we first got SOC 2, it wasn't as big a lift. But there were some things where I was like, oh, we're not doing that. We should do that.
No, I am.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, and it's some of it's a little when you get into some of the weeds, it's like, oh, this looks more like red tape than um actual security stuff that is super important. But when you dig into it, it turns out, yeah, it actually is all super important. So
A lot of value hidden behind every little thing.
there is. It makes you up your game.
So, yeah.
Well, so as marketers, again, how other than working with our IT departments, what should we be practicing every single day to make sure that the data that we're working in is secure so that we're not in breach of SOC compliance? Is there anything we can do?
Well, I think one of the things that is pretty dangerous is kind of shadow IT, and so
I know.
We both are in here like, what?
So yeah, in real terms, it's people going out and doing things without engaging IT. So hey, we just signed up for Chat GPT, and I remember when that was exciting, and I'm like, you did what? And I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute, how do we need to investigate that? Part of SOC is having you have to have a vendor onboarding and offboarding process. And we have that. And so, and I know you've filled out and said, you haven't approved my new vendor yet,
Mhm.
kind of thing. But that's the biggest danger that, people can do is just kind of run out and grab a new vendor. you really want to vet, people as far as not just what's on their website, but, we look at, we, y- there's a lot of things that we look at when we onboard a new vendor. Information security is another one. Privacy policies are another one. So, I think the thing from a marketer standpoint, I would say, be careful who your vendors are, and make sure, ideally they're checking the SOC box. And
My
if they're,
fingers got it. Sorry, that took me a second. I was like, wait, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so, um, yeah, and follow, it's all those kind of procedures that you have to follow. Like, yeah, okay, don't do the things you're not supposed to do. I mean, if you look at, security is all about layers. And the layer at the bottom is kind of the human layer. And that's why SOC has the part about, are you doing background checks on your people? Are you training your people? Are you evaluating your people? And those are the things that they look at, and those are the things that are important. So being a human firewall at the bottom layer of this, all the other stuff that we put in is important.
So, it's interesting. There's so many markets are just they change so rapidly now, right? For someone who I truly do believe is a SOC compliance expert, and guys, what you're hearing is just like the top of the iceberg kind of thing. Kelly can, pardon the expression, but drone on about this for hours, and he's actually really smart. In fact, I think what you just said is something I need to do a better job of, and probably marketers in general, is really understanding that when we're selecting new vendors and choosing who we're going to partner with, that should probably be one of our questions: is, are you SOC 2 compliant? I think that that's something I definitely overlook. But as we talk about, you know, an evolving world, where do you see SOC going, and how is it going to evolve in the future, and how should we be preparing for that?
I think data security is only going to become more important. Um, so, an investment, a mature company should have investment into, um, IT security, IT functions in general. And, I think it's just going to, IT security is a growth industry because there are lots of people. It used to be the joke that, hackers were people who lived in their mom's basement. And that's not true. Hackers are criminal global organizations. And it's people's job to get up every day and go try and steal your information, fleece grandma, and things like that. And whether that's right or wrong, that's what's happening. And, organizations have been infiltrated, and, it's funny, the hackers have been hacked. And, but you see, for example, a hacker got hacked and they released everything on their Slack channel, and people were like, this is run just like any other company, it's like, except they don't use names. They use like their pseudonyms or whatever. But you see a lot of the stuff you see in, you would expect to see in any company, managers and,
Monday meetings.
exactly. Just, so it's an industry. So you have to protect against it, or you're going to be a victim.
Does
And the same thing applies personally, but we get into that later.
To your point, about cybersecurity, I want to touch on that a little bit more. A lot of people are taking interest in the field. It's a growing field. In fact, when I went and pulled some research, so as marketers, we're preparing our go-to-market strategies, right? One of the things we look at are who's growing in which industries. And across the tech field, cybersecurity is in the top 3. Actually, I think it's number 1. And if we can find that data, we'll pull it up here and we'll take a look at it. But or share that screenshot with you. And then again, this is just data we pulled, right? And I'm sure that there are, actually, I don't think you're going to see conflicting information on this when cybersecurity is at the top of the list. And I guess, for those who want to get into cybersecurity, how do you go about it? What is it that you need to know? Do you have to go to college for that now? Is it certificates you can get? I see a lot of them online.
Well, it's interesting. There are actually, if I look at our cybersecurity practices, there are two pieces, and so you have to figure out which piece you're interested in, and you have to have both. So there's cybersecurity operations, and so that would be something. There's something called a SOC, which is a Security Operations Center, different than SOC that we've been talking about, but
You guys want to keep it confusing.
everybody loves acronyms. They're
qualified at that.
so nice. So there's the operations standpoint. So if you're interested in kind of protecting data and you're interested in, kind of, we call it kind of red team. And so that's, being an ethical hacker, or, making sure that systems are set up and that, operating correctly and day to day and responding to threats. So that's one side of it. The other side is what's called GRC. And so,
What does that stand for?
Governance, risk, and compliance.
thank you.
I'm here for it.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's just, you use things so long that you're like, "Oh, what does that stand for?" So
ERC, Adam.
yeah, so basically this is on, the governance side is, who's writing the security policies? Are we sure that, the policies and procedures that we have in place, right? Because that's part of what SOC actually audits is, do you have these policies in place? Have you trained people on them? Do you have procedures? Are you following them? Where are your checklist? That type of thing. And, and, some people are very interested in that. And then the audit function on that side too. It's, are we being compliant in, not only SOC stuff, but we also have to worry about, GDPR, California's, whatever their law is called now. They've changed it from CCPA to CPRA or something like that. But, and then you've got different states that are piling on. And so, there's a lot to look at just besides SOC 2 that we're always looking at. So you have kind of the GRC side and the ops side. And so you decide what you're interested in, or maybe you just decide you're interested in cybersecurity, and they're going to expose you to both. But really, it's, it goes back to the things we were talking about. At the front is some people are kind of wired to be kind of more process oriented, and they're going to follow on the GRC side. And then some people are, wired to be, more. I would say we in HBDI we call it blue, right? But it's, what is the analytical? That's going to be the analytical part. And so,
Well, and Stacy, thank you for finding that chart. I wanted to just point out, and it's interesting, this is going to link us to our next question, but it's number 4 only. When I say number 4, cybersecurity is the highest growth rate over the next 3 years, only behind AI and AR, which we understand that, right, is taking over everything. And of course, Internet of Things. And those 3 oftentimes can somewhat be combined to me. So if you're thinking of it from that perspective, it really is kind of number 2. But that's the importance of cybersecurity and how fast this industry is growing. That said, how do you see something like AI impacting SOC compliance? Because I think that's a
That's what I was going to ask too. It's like it has to have thrown a wrinkle in all the processes and examinations.
how
And
Google Sheets, and who can, or does it help you find answers sooner? Like, and I'll go back to Salesforce. If you're looking for their audit, you can likely find that online, but can you just ask good old GPT?
you can't actually. The
Oh.
interesting thing about the SOC 2 is generally there is a so people can say they're SOC 2 and they can put the badge on, but you can't actually put it on your website. There's a restriction as to, it has to be for
Totally.
a client kind of thing.
We put it on our website.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, we did. You said
a report.
No, not the report. The report, yes, you put that on.
Oh, correct.
Sorry, I'm sorry. So the report that has everything on it with the opinions, and I'm like, no, I would know. And so yeah, so you can't go out. You can go out and see who's SOC 2 certified, but just saying that you are something, you want to actually see the document. You want to see how old it is, that type of thing.
But now, can you share that report with potential prospects as proof? Or
As long as they've signed an NDA. And so there is another level of SOC called a SOC 3, and that can be shared publicly, and people can publish that. And a lot of times the auditor, it's almost the same as the SOC 2. You can pay extra and get a SOC 3.
Publicly available.
Yeah, and then you stick that on your website, and it's like, if you want the details under that, then you need the NDA. And so, like, for example, the NetSuite's and Microsoft's SOC 2, they're available, but you have to go online and you have to have an account, and you have to have signed the agreement. Some of them are click through, and some of them are actually, Adobe Sign or DocuSign or whatever. And so, yeah, you have to. The SOC 2s are not publicly available.
so I'm going to go back for a second. So SOC 1 meets the pain points.
SOC 1 is different.
Well, totally. But I want to go over the 3 real quick, right?
SOC-2 Type 2.
Well, yeah. So hold that thought. So 1 is essentially if you have a SOC 1, you're meeting the pain points, right? SOC 2 is you meet in practice,
No.
and then
That's close. It's close. So SOC 1 is around financial practices.
shit.
A SOC 2 is around your data security practices. And so someone can have a SOC 1, but it's generally we're talking about financial practices.
They're
A
investigating
little
the
bit more.
right things, but they're not actually
When-
putting it into practice and meeting it at that one point in time for type 1 and then doing it all the time for type 2.
And then
Well, yeah, type 1 and type 2, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Then it's SOC 2 Type 1, SOC 2 Type 2.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But there is a SOC 1, but it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Well, it's about finance, not data security.
And then there's this type 3. And just for clarification, so the first type 1 financial I put financial practice.
More or less.
Type 2 data security. Type 3 one word.
Same thing, data security, but publicly available.
That's what okay. I was gonna say that, and then I was like, oh, you didn't get the first right at all. So I said it's kind of noted. Yeah, it is. But it's important for us as marketers to know, right? Because one, we do need to be able to say that yes, we do have this too. We certainly don't want to put our reports up online, and then unless they have the right process in place, 100%. But also 3, we want to be able to convey correctly to anyone who's interested in talking with us, right? And then we want to make sure that we do that clear. And until today, I did not realize that there were 3 types. I thought SOC 2 was just the name. I didn't realize that's because there was a SOC 1 or a 3 for that matter. Who knew that? So I'm going to go back for a second. We're talking about AI and then the impact. Is that something you see having a massive impact into the future of SOC and putting controls in place to measure AI practices?
Well, I think,
Or even AR for that matter, because that's a whole new ballgame.
Perhaps more into like the data security stuff, how people handle risks and the hacking and the phishing, like with the training that you guys give us, where we learn about people who do phishing and social stuff. Because now there's videos you can make that look real that are like you could get on a video call with somebody and you are on the phone with
deepfakes.
something that's not real.
The deepfakes are actually terrifying. Have you guys watched those? So obviously we're going into a big election year, right? We've got Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and there are so many deepfakes going around, conversations or memes of them like beating each other up or doing things that are wildly inappropriate that they would never do. And so that's entering a whole new territory of, as you said earlier, Adam, paranoia, right? For someone like me, like, whoa.
Well, it changes. It definitely changes. Like, what are the trainings that we do? Because you guys, we do kind of monthly phishing tests, and then we do and AI kind of powers some of those already.
I failed it once.
And then we do kind of the yearly trainings. We have a couple of different yearly trainings, but this year we've added AI. If you haven't done yours yet, you wouldn't know that. But we just released it last week, so we give people 4 weeks. So when you do it, you'll see that there's AI in there. And we talk about deepfakes. We talk about CEO impersonation has always kind of been a thing, but now it's at a different level. So I think that broadly, SOC 2, and information security practices are meant to be pretty broad. So it probably is going to add at some point some new evidence requirements.
Yeah.
But I don't, from a framework standpoint, you still need policies around it. You still need procedures. It still needs to be. You have to have your trusted vendors, or if they're a vendor that you're using, have you done your compliance? Have you done your privacy? Those types of things. So the framework will absorb a lot of stuff. But I think that you're right. There'll be some new maybe evidence. How do you know? How do you know you're not running shadow? That your content is, if you're getting content out of GPT, how do you know that the content is not copyrighted? Those types of things. Yeah. So.
Fair enough. Kelly, just for my own curiosity, what is your least favorite thing about SOC? And you can't say all the acronyms.
No, I think the going back to the types of people, I'm the blue, I'm the analytical type, and I really like to build things, and I like to build processes. I don't love to audit processes. I don't love to, so a lot of the things that I don't like are things that are like, feel like more process oriented, more red tape. And it's like, is this just red tape or is it actually serving a purpose? And I think the answer that you arrive at eventually is it's serving a purpose or it wouldn't be there. The CPAs wouldn't have it there. And so, I think it's getting around those things where, and convincing people that it's, yes, you should be doing this. Yes, we should be doing this. And, I think, I pull out sometimes it's a SOC requirement and people go, oh,
Yeah, we go, is he making that up? Is this one of those things where it's like,
Well, and
no, I knew it, you guys, they do this.
but yeah, but that's just for me. And that's just based on, but I have people that work with me, that love it. And so that's the thing. And I think, you're, it takes an investment and it takes a team effort. So,
That's a great point, right? And as we're running short on time, guys, we're gonna start wrap up. But one thing I do want to say as we do start to close down is, you're talking about this, and then Kelly's talking about phishing tests and training that's sitting in our inboxes right now. It was sent last week, and Adam and I are giggling because we know that the marketing team, outside of maybe one or two, are going to be the slowest to respond because we're busy. but the truth is, aside from that, knowing what we know coming out of this, it's important to what we do, and it should be just as important as collecting the data, right? We're all going out after leads, we're all going after the sale, and we're all trying to drive new business, but we have to keep them safe, and that's extremely important. And so as we sit here and laugh, shame on us, I'm going to scold us a little bit, Adam. Let's make a better effort as marketers to make sure that we consider these things, guys. And with that, Kelly, is there anything you want to leave our audience with today?
No, again, I think, this is one piece of, data security and, it's a big part of it. It should be a big part of everybody's life, personally and professionally. And so I'd love to talk kind of more about that later.
So as we wrap up, we like to give a shout out to different companies that provide that they do something impressive that we enjoy working with, or that we think are just really cool products. Is there anyone that provides auditing services or something like that you'd love to shout out and say, hey, you should check these guys out, they could help you?
Sure. I definitely recommend our vendor, A-Line. We were originally with actually Assure Professional, but they were bought by A-Line, and they've been really great, and they can help. At this point, they're doing the audit, but if you're just trying to get started, there are lots of. It's a different package. Maybe it costs a different cost because part of it will help you get started, and then we'll start the audit because or they'll recommend someone as a partner because they don't want to have a conflict, right? They want you to pass, but they can't let you slide by either. So I definitely suggest, them as a partner, either, to help get started or to, continue on your journey because they've been a good partner.
So guys, A-Line, check them out. As always, there will be a link down below. And if you have any questions, we'll make sure, put them in the comments section and we'll respond to them. We'll put you in touch with the big guy here and let him help you along your journey. That said, guys, that's a wrap. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mid-Marketers Podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.